Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. So happy you are all here, and I am excited because I have my guest. Let me see, I always get my direction wrong. This way, Lynne Velling. Yeah, I know. It's always one of these. So
Uh,
I'm so excited here to have her here today. And I see Sharon has stopped by. I don't know if you're still here, but Sharon, thank you you're always popping in. You're always my first person to say hello to everyone. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm sure we'll get a few more people as we get started here. So I want to share with you how I met Lynne before we dive in here. I used to be terrified, and when I say terrified, I mean terrified of public speaking. And I've been like this ever since I was young. I think it happened back in high school where I had to get up and do a report or something like that. And I was tripping over my words and my voice was shaking and, the kids were laughing. So that just kind of shut it down for me where it's like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want any part of it. And this carried all the way up into my adult life. And I went to this retreat. It was I can't think of the name of it, but that's not the important part. I went to this retreat and they asked for somebody who was scared of public speaking to come up on stage. And my friend that was sitting next to me said, "Oh my goodness, you should do that. That would be great for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I raised my hand and then I went, "Are you crazy? What are you thinking?" I was like, "No way." And I put my hand back down. So the gentleman was scanning the audience. It was about 200 people in the audience. He's scanning and he looks at me and he's like, "You, come on up." And I was like, "My hand is down. Why are you calling me?" So I went up on stage and I'm literally trembling. I'm terrified. And he had me do this exercise to share a very vulnerable moment. And I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this." And so I'm trying to talk and share this moment. And he's like, "You know what? I just want you to yell. Just yell." And I was like, nothing was coming out. And I'm like, and he's like, "No, just take a deep breath, relax, and just let it come out." Well, when I did that, it was like this roar that came out. And everybody stood up and was holding the space for me and was clapping. And it was like this moment. So I said, okay, I felt good about it, but I didn't know if I was going to do this again. Hey, Love and Light EQ, my other half, my soul sister, welcome. Good to see you. So then after that, I was working with someone and I was telling them about that experience. And she said, "You need to do speaking circles." And I said, "Speaking circles? What is speaking circles?" And she said, "Well, it's not like Toastmasters," because I was never going to do Toastmasters the way I heard that they had to put you on, some places put you on the spot or you had to come with something. And it just didn't sound right for me. And nothing against Toastmasters. It is it is a great program, but it's just, she told me about speaking circles, how different it was. Hey, Debbie, Freebird Spirit, thank you for joining. And she told me, she said they have a different approach of working with you and using your voice. And I really think you should look it up. So I did, and I found out that it was an international organization. So I checked out for the United States, and ultimately, for my area, it led me to Lynne. And I think was it about 7 years ago, Lynne, when I took one of your classes? Seven or 8 years ago.
Maybe eight, something like that.
Yeah, about 8 years ago, I took a workshop with Lynne, and I was hooked. And I'm not going to go too much more in detail. We'll talk about that as we dive deeper into this conversation. But I have to tell you, it literally changed my life. And I've done a few workshops with her and also her online workshops. So Lynne, I'm going to throw this over to you and tell us how you got involved with speaking circles and a little bit about what it is.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to see you, Sonia. just blossom like you have.
Oh,
And it's been your work. You know, I'm the guide, but you're the one who's doing the work. And that's for anybody who wants to really develop themselves from the inside out. Being a Toastmaster for 23 years, I did not know anything about speaking circles until the 16th year I was in Toastmasters. So I was really in the lane. I was in the channel. I came to Toastmasters because someone said, Lynne, you could use a little polish, you know, a little refinement. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what I was walking into. But the good thing about Toastmasters is that it's communication and leadership.
mhm.
And it's very left brain oriented, except for some part of it. Left brain meaning very organized. There's manuals and there's evaluation and there's awards and there's clapping and there's contests. And I did those for many, many years, as you can imagine. And then I did training and leadership, and it went quite on for a bit. Then one conference organizing period, I was doing the conference organizing. I was looking for a keynote speaker. I happened to cross at that time a brochure that had, maybe some of you know, is called Speakers for Fee and Free. It doesn't exist. I don't believe it exists anymore, but that goes on online anyway. Now you can find both. So I'm paging through this magazine, and I came across this description of a workshop that was happening. The person who was conducting the workshop was the founder of Speaking Circles. He happened to be in LA. His name is Lee Glickstein. And I'm reading this text. Now, what you're thinking, just consider that I'm in the mindset of probably a 16-year Toastmaster at that time. So my blinders were not real open. And I said to my boyfriend at the time, well, why don't we just check this out? The language of the write-up was so different from what I was used to.
Mhm.
Words like authentic and deep listening and speaking from your core and clarity. And I thought, wow. We don't talk about all that stuff in Toastmasters. So I said, well, why don't we just go to the Friday night thing, just put my foot in the shallow end of this discovery pool. And this guy boyfriend said at the time, well, why don't we just go for the whole day? I mean, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And like Sonia's experience of something changing your life, I had the same experience. Not just immediate change, but I could feel it inside. I knew something was resonating inside.
Mm.
And what I came to discover was the organic practices that we teach people and train people. Sonia's one of them, of hundreds that I've worked with. And in my own coaching, my personal one-to-one coaching, and my training with businesses and nonprofits, and in my teaching career, I used this, not the circle itself, because that's a very specific program or platform, but the core practice, which is called relational presence.
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful thing about that is that's what you learn. And for yourself, you can practice a lot of speeches, you can give a lot of speeches, and you can memorize. But if you forget everything,
Yep.
you can freeze up totally. With this practice of relational presence, you develop the energy under the content. And that's what Sonia has learned. And I've just seen her. And when in the virtual speaking circles, that we've done. I've seen her take what we practice there and bring it here. It's just wonderful to see that the quality of the work is very, very attractive for many reasons. So that's how I came across speaking circles, and I said to myself, I don't know anybody in Los Angeles who's doing this. And how many million people are there here in LA? Oh, one person I knew.
Yeah.
And so I went to his circles, and then I said, I have to do this. You know that feeling? You know that feeling?
I do.
Say, well,
Yes.
how could I not do this? This is just so powerful.
Mhm.
It's so meaningful. It adds something to my way of being, not just when I'm speech giving, but how I am in my personal life,
Mhm.
how I am in my volunteer life, how I am with my family and my students, with my clients. And you know yourself, Sonia, you know, if you don't use it, if you don't use this practice of relational presence, then it evaporates.
Yeah.
So it is a practice that is very organic at your core.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that was really beneficial that I learned in your class was that the first time that I ever got spoke up or spoke in front of everyone, or actually it was the first workshop because we were all in person during that time.
Yeah.
But that first workshop, when I got up and it felt so good, you said, you don't have to say anything. Just learn to connect with your body and the audience. And as I was breathing, taking my deep breaths and kind of looking around the room and connecting and taking one person in at a time,
Yeah.
I could feel myself shaking, but the more I kept breathing and connecting, it just helped me to center and to really um, tell myself it's okay, like you're okay. And without having to say those words, that really helped. Just connecting with the audience and connecting with myself. And then eventually moving into saying whatever you allowed us, you told us that we can say whatever that we want to say. So that was very helpful too, because you're not coming prepared with any speech. You can say a poem or you can say anything silly or tell a story, whatever it was, it just made things, I don't know, it was just a really great experience. So I'm grateful.
No, it's interesting, Sonia, that we all know that when we're called upon to deliver a speech, give a presentation, it doesn't have to be that we memorize every single word.
Right.
In fact, a Toastmaster mentor of mine, when I was preparing for a speech, and I can hear myself right now saying to him, he was a great guy. I said, Pete, I'm not gonna. I have I have this beautiful speech written down, but I don't think I can remember everything. And he said, Lynn, your listeners won't remember every word you say. They'll remember how it felt. How it felt. And when we are more authentic, and when we come from that place of of connection, and we learn a way of doing that in speaking circles, and you alluded to it, Sonia, is one person at a time, just like a conversation, speaking and listening to ourselves at the same time we're listening to our listener. So it's like this figure eight, or the sideways, the infinity symbol. Just think about that. I'm listening to you, listening to me as I'm listening to myself.
Mm.
Now, how do we do that? Slowing down, breathing, softening our gaze so we're not in tunnel vision. We're softening our gaze so that we're more receptive. And anybody can do that, anybody, but it takes practice. It takes practice, and you can practice in the mirror. But the real test comes when you have a live human being.
Yes.
And
So true. So
yeah, and
true.
so you've learned that, Sonia, and you have that. Sometimes we call it a muscle or a capacity, and that's the relational presence as the core practice of speaking circles.
Yes.
And that relates to the topic for today, finding your own voice.
Mhm.
When we are able to notice how we are and speak from the inside out, it's not just a performance. And I think probably you can relate, Sonia, and everybody who's here on this call can relate. It's almost as if we're not really there. We're in a mask, or we're covering up, we're pretending because we're afraid of being seen for who we are. So
Yes.
we're acting. And sometimes, and people have a lot of coping mechanisms. Sometimes we have to act like we believe we're good.
Yes.
And that gets us through, but it's not something necessarily to fall on as a lifestyle, you know?
Mhm.
And when we have a capacity in ourselves, which we use in many aspects of our lives, with anybody who we choose. That's the question is, or that's the issue is, who do we choose to be this way with? Just
Right.
anybody, anytime, noticing them, allowing them to see me as I'm seeing them. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people.
It is. It reminds me of this one exercise that you did. I have to be honest, it was a little uncomfortable for me in the beginning. This was in the in-person workshop where we had to sit across from another person and we had to look at each other in the eyes and just take that person in. And I was like, oh, how much longer do we have to do this? And it's just, I think for me, I just felt so vulnerable, to be seen like that, for that person just looking directly at me. But eventually, I just learned to kind of get over myself and just be like, it's okay. And just giving gratitude to that person and taking them in as they're taking me in. As you said, kind of that infinity, even though there's no words being spoken, but we're
Yeah.
just here taking each other in and just allowing that space to be there between us. And it's a powerful exercise.
It translates. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sonia, because, excuse me, that exercise translates into how we are in many situations, which is, for example, we don't have an answer, an immediate answer, or we're giving a presentation and we want to emphasize something. So we pause and we look and we allow people to look at ourselves. So that stopping, some people say the pause is as important as the words.
Mm.
So when we are able to, well, first of all, most of us want to be seen and heard. Wouldn't you say so? Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Most of us human beings want to be seen and heard. But to do that really effectively, and effective is a key word, to really do that effectively, we have to know how we see and how we hear. So, in this work that Sonia and I are talking about, speaking circles and relational presence, we learn to listen with our body, and that's called attunement, and listen with our eyes. And listening is a hugely underrated and undertaught skill.
Yes.
So when we're able to listen to what's going on inside when we're in these anxious situations and we just allow it, like in meditation, when all the thoughts just come through. If we fight them, it's the same thing.
Yes.
If we fight it, we get caught up in it. But if we watch it and let it ride. It's the same with fear. Fear comes and we can move through it. We can move through it, but we have to know how, not just fight it all the time.
Absolutely.
And,
No, that's a great
and that's
point.
what you experienced and over again, Sonia.
Yes, yes. For those that are just joining, I just want to say hi to Sheila and Patty, Gina and Sharon. Welcome. When we first started, I shared a story. I'll have you go back and listen to it, so I'm not going to repeat it again, but of how I got started in speaking, because I used to be scared to speak in front of people. But Lynn's classes have really changed so much for me. And I've actually taken it into my workspace because I manage events. So there were many events where I had to get up and speak in front of people, or there's been plenty of times where I had to get up and speak in front of people. But because of these classes that I've taken, it's allowed me to really just be present, just using the relational presence. It's done wonders for me. I have to say, it's done wonders. And then now, which I'll have you talk a little bit about too, how you transitioned in this whole COVID period. I took a couple of her online classes, and because I do events, we had to put all of our events online. It's helped me to work with all of our people that attended our events online, because there's just a different way of connecting with people when you're doing online. So for all of you that have channels in here, this is a great one that I'll have Lynne dive into. How did you do that transition, Lynne, of when, here's COVID and of course turned a lot of people's worlds upside down, and now you're doing these workshops. What made you think of transitioning to going online?
I was thinking, how the hell am I going to do this? I mean, this work that I'm in, and just like Toastmasters or any organization that meets in person, you have to figure out how you're going to do that. And now that Zoom's become a generic term, I'm sure Google Meets would love to be what Zoom is, but I don't think they're there. I don't think they're there quite yet. So Zoom, I've been doing Zoom for years, but not in this format of a workshop. And so many people are doing that now. But a year and a half ago, the founder of this work, Lee Glickstein, I mentioned before, and the senior training director of Speaking Circles International, as Sonia said, it is an international organization. They just developed this way, working with the camera lens, to explore what is the connection? What is connection through the camera? How can we do that? As you know, Sonia, and listeners here, connection is key. Connection is key. If we're not, and people have told me in one-to-one coaching that I do and other work that I do, I just want to connect. I just want to connect. I want them to connect with me. And I said, well, don't try so hard, allow. So how do we do that with this little camera here and this format that has us all in little boxes? And yet, when in the format that was developed and that I trained in and did a lot of practicing, as I'm sure all of you have done who are doing workshops online, you have to, it's like riding the bicycle for the first time. You have to get on the bike and start doing it and know where the buttons are and know where your eyes are and know about how to be your message. If we're doing too many things, we're all over the place. The quality of the communication is affected. The connection is affected. Mm-hmm. And just recently, someone who came to one of my online circles was speaking, and then eyes up. She was like this much of the time. And she's a coach. And I'm thinking to myself, when I first saw her do this in another arena, in another class I was taking, which was the reason I invited her, I said, "Oh, just come and see how this is for you." I saw that, and I think she doesn't see, as many of us don't even know what our body's doing.
Yes.
Whether it's touching or all the stuff that we do. Sometimes my glasses slip, especially when it's hot and my nose gets damp and I'm doing this. But most of the time I don't. But some of us have these habits that we're unaware of. And this is why Zoom is so helpful, because as Sonia is recording this, I record all the workshops that I do, and I record my client meetings. Some people are scared like you can't believe, or maybe you can believe, to watch themselves. And I've been doing that for years, is recording a person. Why? Because it's such a great learning tool. You watch yourself, okay? And and may I emphasize, more than once. More than once. Because you're going to be very self-critical the first time you watch. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, look what I did do. Oh, I blew it. You're going to be analyzing and criticizing. Oh. The second time, maybe you're a little softer on yourself. And if you can watch with that regard, that detachment, as if you're someone else, maybe like watching someone give a speech, watch the person up front, or evaluate them as a presenter that you might take a class from. The third way you can watch it is, imagine you're watching it as an audience member, watching the connection between the presenter, like Sonia or myself, and the audience. And imagine you're watching, how's that interaction going? How are they relating to their listeners? So the more we detach and develop that objectivity, the more we benefit ourselves. So I'm encouraging all of you to have the courage that Sonia had and that I had when I first went, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I'd never read about speaking circles. I just, it was a blind date. So, anyway, speaking circles on COVID, and during COVID, many of my colleagues did workshops, and I would go to theirs because I loved being in that place that Sonia was describing, of no need to say anything. Just feel your body. Feel the stillness in your body. Where is that in myself? As Eckhart Tolle talks about, that's such a core place in us that we can access with a breath, a deeper breath. And as that translates to your speaking, when you take a breath and you feel at the bottom of the breath that still place that you have inside, that's coming in touch with your presence.
Yes.
And your power and your deeper wisdom. And when you are that way and you make yourself available to other people that way, it doesn't matter if they look away. It doesn't matter if their face might look funny. You can always say, is that clear? You can always say, did that make sense? Or do you have a question? We engage in a way that shows that we own our own power. You found your voice at the moment, and maybe that's in silence, and maybe that's pausing, but it's always there when you have this capacity. even as a platform speaker, or maybe you're at a networking meeting, many of which I've been to, and Sonia, you've been to, and I'm sure your listeners, you're selling yourself. How do you present yourself? How do I do that in 30 seconds? Is it just, stream of consciousness, words just coming out? It's usually a finely tuned, self-aware description of the service that you're providing. And you have to be really in it to be believed and effective.
Absolutely.
So, as you know, people identify with your authenticity. So when you have a 30-second time, wow, it's challenging. 60-second, you can give yourself maybe a little story sneak in there, or say something a little, add more about your benefits, the benefits of working with you. When you have 2 minutes, you can get a fuller story in there. Here's the story, here's the message, here's the meaning of that story, and here's how it relates to you and how I can be of service to you.
Yeah.
So professionally, learning this skill of relational presence in this arena of speaking circles, or in training, if you wanted me to speak to your group, or we did a group training, if Sonia has something, some colleagues come together and we work in a group environment where, as I did with lawyers and I did with teachers, you speak to their needs, and this is called applied speaking circles or applied relational presence. So in addition to the pure speaking circle environment, whether it's in person, like Sonia experienced with me, and virtual, as Sonia and many others have done, you get a benefit by being live. I'm not live, but in person, of course, you get that sense of being right there, and you've got the eyes right there, but there's something the same and slightly different in this format.
Yeah.
And you know that, Sonia.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably practice that all the time with your client work, and with your daughter, and who knows who else.
It's you can use it in every aspect of your life, which has been extremely helpful for me.
Yeah.
And I have to say, with the video, and I do have a question here too I want to get to. Yes, Debbie, you totally would. Debbie says, I would absolutely benefit from a speaking circle. It's phenomenal. I don't have any other words to say, but I know the first time when I was videotaped, the first workshop that I went to, and I got home and I saw my video, I was mortified.
Me too, Sonia.
Watching yourself is just like, oh. But as I started doing it more, I started looking at it as a learning tool. What do I do? So when you mentioned the one person that was on that rolled their eyes back, I can relate to that, because I do have times I catch myself doing that sometimes, not as much as I used to, but when I'm trying to access information or figure out what I'm getting ready to say, my eyes, so I think, when I'm really going and not paying attention, my eyes do go up in the back of my head. But even those that have your own YouTube channel, go back and watch some of your videos, because these are tools. These help to teach us what we're doing. Maybe we're doing too much of this and that, and not to really critique or get too hard on yourself. We're only human, right? So, but there are techniques that Lynne shares in her classes that are very beneficial. So I highly recommend speaking circles. I want to get to this question. Patty wants to know, have you worked with any real famous people?
Patty, if you're talking actors or
I think he means actors.
Sports people, or I would say I have worked with people in politics. I have worked with politicians who were running for office. Actors, no, but I did study acting and I did know actors. And that relates to my own experience of what I mentioned earlier, which is you can always act. You can act confident, but when the curtain goes down, who's there? Who's there? And so, anyway, that's just a side note, but it does relate. And working with famous people, just thinking, I've been doing speaking circles for 22 years, and I may have in that time, but I've worked with so many people, I don't remember everybody, and I have to look at my website or maybe go through my e-list to see if there's somebody who's really famous. Even actors have their issues about being seen, right?
Oh, yeah.
In fact, when I was doing some training, and I'm a trained actress, when I was doing some training with some of my colleagues some years ago in New York, one of my colleagues said, "Why don't you work with actors, Lynne?" Now, if any of you are actors, you might not appreciate my saying to you, how are you when you're not acting? How do you feel? How's your voice? How's your presence? How comfortable are you? Because sometimes that actor persona is what they want people to know. They want people to see. So other famous people, I would love to work with more of them. It's getting to them. How everybody knows how that is. The path has many rocks in the way. So it just depends. And word of mouth is very helpful. So is there another question, Sonia, that came up?
I don't see any right now, but please, if anyone has a question, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. I mentioned about how I've used speaking circle in my life. What are some other ways that people can utilize this in their lives?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to step back just one step and say something that I think everybody here can relate to. We all grow up. We all have experiences and traumas, and they affect us cellularly. And maybe we cover them up or maybe we get by, but the memory is there. So when another situation comes up and triggers that memory, we can inside retreat. We can retreat. And everybody that I know has something that gets triggered. It might be impatience. And why am I impatient? Because when I was a child, blah, 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 or anger, or sadness, or rejection. I mean, so many things affect us. The traumas affect us. And they can cause us to shut up, not want to be seen, as I was saying earlier, not want to be heard. We want to be heard, but we don't want to be heard. We want to be seen, but then when people are looking at us, what happens? We look away or, we avoid. So we have all these default behaviors. And this can happen in your home, with your friends, in school, as you're growing up. And then you start getting into the world of employment. And if you carry all that with you and you don't have some kind of mirror put up to you, or you have an encounter that causes you to really stop in your tracks and ask yourself, who am I? How am I behaving? What's going on here? Then having the courage to take the step. Take the step. Years ago, before I even knew about speaking circles, I was telling you earlier that I didn't know about it because I read, I just happened to pick up this magazine. But years ago, I was in an automobile accident. I had a good job. I had my first car that I purchased myself. I was not in a relationship, so that was okay. And I had this car accident. It was Christmas time. I was on my way driving down Laurel Canyon, a steep canyon near Hollywood. And I'm driving down this road, and upcoming was a car right in my headlight. I mean, its headlights were right in my eyes. And I thought I was going to die. To make a long story short, I didn't die, but I inside kind of died. It was so traumatic. It triggered, like we get triggered. One of those defining moments. It triggered anger, sadness, all the hurt that I felt, just, woo. And I ended up, because a friend told me about a healing center. I ended up going to this healing center. And then I found at the healing center that I was releasing a lot of my feelings and being helped. So I had help. And if we don't have help when we're going through these difficult times, just as dealing with the fear of public speaking, to be able to speak our truth, we have to overcome fear. To be able to say my truth, to be able to verbalize my, all the stuff that was inside me that I shoved down for not being able to talk with someone about the stuff that I was holding. And it helped me so much over the 10 years that I studied there. Can you believe I studied for 10 years, and then I became a minister of energy healing. It was a healing center, and here I am, never expecting this. At the same time that was happening, I had that experience I was describing of going to a speaking circle. And
Wow.
and so I'm learning about expressing myself. Not that I didn't before, but I was a trained actress. I was in Toastmasters, but there was something deeper. And when I was in that healing program, people were coming to me saying, Lynne, how do you have the courage to ask that question? How do you just speak up like that? And it was so interesting to me that these were other people who were training like I was, asking me about how they could, how do I express myself like you do? And that's when I wrote my ministerial thesis, Finding Your Own Voice.
Wow.
So that's the link, that happened. It was like the energies of the divine just came together, and wow, I took it on. I said, this is my mission. I want to help people find their own voice, to express from authenticity who they are in the world, what they can offer, how they're helping themselves, and what they've learned in life that is meaningful for others.
Yeah.
And
That is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That is a very powerful story. And thank you for your gift of helping others find their voice. I mean, we talked about it already, but you've helped me find my voice, and you've helped so many people. And I just think that is so beautiful, and just really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. And I want to add to that is finding your own voice, as I'm sure you know, and others on this call know, doesn't just happen once, because circumstances change.
So true.
And we can get triggered again. That happened to me in my marriage. The marriage, ending a difficult relationship and then encountering someone new, and I had to find the voice in that relationship. Maybe we get a new job, maybe somebody difficult in our life we have to work with. So it's not a platform we arrive at and just coast on. So being honest with ourselves and using the tools that we have and this practice gives you what can help you to be more effective, more easygoing, more powerful from the inside out, whether you speak or not.
Yes. Yes. I just want to post this comment here. There we go. Hi, Tiny Trinkets and Tarot and Teresa, welcome. Tiny Trinkets says, really getting to know ourselves does take courage. It takes even more courage to peel back and expose ourselves and be vulnerable to others. And she says she's enjoying listening to you.
Well, Tiny Trinkets and Tarot, you're absolutely right. Courage is the muscle. It's not just a word to talk about. If we live it, it changes everything. But it's not, yeah. And courage is a word that comes from heart. It's a French word. Courage means heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something when people often say, I want to speak from the heart. I've heard people say that. They've told me that. And I say, well, do you know how to do that? Well, I think about it. And I'll say, drop into it. Drop into your heart.
Yeah.
Feel what's happening. Feel who you are. And feel the listener as you're speaking. Feel the connection and the attunement. Rather than speaking at, speak with. And most of you know that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful way of connecting with someone. Patty wants to know, she says, I've noticed that in person, looking into someone's eyes in a touch helps. How do you switch it when online? Great question.
Yeah. Well, for myself, what I learned in the speaking circles training, that was very new for me, because in Toastmasters, we talk about eye contact. And if you read about public speaking, you're going to see those two words everywhere, eye contact. 3 seconds here, 5 seconds there, 3 seconds, the shotgun approach or the bullet approach, or the smear, just smear your eyes across the screen, just like peanut butter, get them all. But when you're with someone and you soften your gaze so that you can see on your periphery, it doesn't seem quite so direct, so into the person. So if you can feel that now, from me through the camera, you can do the same thing. I'm looking in the camera, but I can see Sonia. I can see her on my periphery, and I can see the comments on the other side of the screen. So if I'm looking at someone online and I look at the camera that way rather than this way, everybody feels it. Can you feel it? Do you feel it, Patty? You try it. Practice, record yourself and then watch yourself.
Yeah, there is a difference. I do it sometimes I'm looking right at the screen, but because I'm looking at the screen because I feel like I'm speaking to the chat, but when I'm giving a message, an overall message to everyone, then I direct my eyes to the camera.
Yeah.
So that everyone can hear what I'm saying.
And if you saw, you think about it, really, what are our television broadcasters doing?
Right.
Exact same thing. And how long have they been doing that? We tune into the nightly news, the morning forecast, whatever. What do? They're looking right at the camera and they're talking to you and me.
So true.
We've seen it all the time. Now we have this opportunity to do it in our YouTube videos, our Facebook videos, Instagram videos we post on Twitter, and a zillion other platforms.
Right. So many.
Yeah. So it is really, really helpful. And it just takes getting used to it. You'll see, as a matter of fact, you'll see YouTube videos on eye exercises for doing this kind of work.
Oh, great.
Just, if your eyes get tired from looking at the screen, looking down or closing them and practicing before you get online.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. That's handy.
Yeah.
Check that out. Debbie wants to know, do you offer different levels for circles?
How do you mean levels? Tell me more.
Are you referring to different types of classes, Debbie? Or like a beginner, advanced, immediate level? What type of levels? Just make sure that we get your question answered correctly. Hey, Jay. Welcome. And I think I said hi to, go back up here. Oh, Nigel, hi. I didn't see your question. I will post your question up next. Welcome.
You know, Freebird, I'm happy to answer if you send me an email.
You said, oh yeah, the different levels, beginning, beginning, like advanced, immediate. What type of classes do you offer?
I can answer that more one-to-one with you.
One-to-one? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, in the description, there is a ton of information. Lynne was very helpful to provide. There's a couple of sheets that you can download with the links on relational presence. There is also her contact information. There's information to her website that has all her classes that she provides, the virtual online classes, if you're interested in doing a virtual online class, which I highly recommend. It's great, and there's all ages on there. Now, I've seen older people. What's the youngest that you've worked with, Lynne, on your channel? I mean, on your practice circles.
You know, if I'm targeting adolescents, then I would only do adolescents. But if I'm including adolescents with adults, it's a different dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It just is, and people don't feel as free as adults to express. I mean, of course, kids see everything today, everything,
right,
and hear everything, but to hear it in this format doesn't have doesn't achieve the same results that I experience. So if adults say maybe 18 to, I have an 85-year-old right now in my circles, and she's amazing. But if I were doing adolescents, I would probably just do them because it's kind of that peer support thing.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I know my daughter has been asking me about speaking, so good to know that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking for, and hi, Elisa. If I didn't say hi to you, welcome. Looking for Nigel. Oh, here it is. Okay. So Nigel says, what does listening with your body look or feel like in practice?
Ooh, I love that question. Nigel, imagine your body like a tuning fork. So someone you're talking with, listen to their vibration with your tuning fork. Listen under the words. So you're listening to the words, but you're also deepening your listening. Practice it. How am I attuning? You know that word, attunement. We talk about it all the time. Also, you know that word vibe. You know, I can feel their vibe. Well, we know that because our bodies are sensational. We're sensational beings. By that I mean we have all these different senses. So, and also energetically, we know that energy travels. We know that we have energy, our personal vibes. You know, when you can feel it off someone. So when we come together, we can feel the vibe in the room. We use that expression. So if we set that intention, then I'm going to allow myself to be like a tuning fork. Or another image of that is be like a satellite dish. You know, open, focused, the center of the satellite dish, you're receiving, but you're open. I love that image.
I resonate with that one. I like that one.
Yeah. So does that help you, Nigel? I hope.
That was a good question. Thank you for that, Nigel. I saw here, where is it? Because I can relate to this as well, Sheila. I'm curious. I'll tell you what I do, but I'm curious to see what Lynn has to say to it. Sheila says, I can speak in front of people, but age is making me lose thoughts in mid-sentence. Not cool. I'm 55 on the 17th. Happy early birthday. And feeling my age. So for me personally, I just take that moment to pause and try to gather my thoughts. And if I can't, then I just admit to saying, well, I will have to come back to that. Or or if I'm joking, I say, well, as my mom used to say, if it's important, it'll come back to me again. And then I just go on with what I'm saying. But Lynn, I'd love to hear your response to that.
That is so real, Sonia. That is so real. And people love that. They love that we are relatable. Isn't that the truth? When you blow it, you forget a word, you've lost it for a moment, or you look at somebody, they make you laugh when you didn't expect to laugh. I mean, the audience is watching you. Is she real? Can she just go with the flow? So Sheila was the one who asked that?
Yes.
Yeah, Sheila, you prepare. It depends on what the circumstances. If you're speaking to me or Sonia or one of your friends and you forget, then I'd probably wait for you, or I might help you in some way. But if you're at work, then you might say, it just went right by. Be real. And if it's under pressure and you forgot something really, really important, you say, it's left me in the moment, but I know it's going to come back, or I need to look at my notes, or there's multiple ways that you can handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or make a joke and say, I'm feeling my age, so.
Or, some people say senior moment.
Senior moment, that's it, yes. I'm having my senior moment.
Another thing people can say is, I forgot what I intended to say, but something else is coming to me right now.
Oh, that's a good
one. It's like being a channel. I'm opening up to the deeper wisdom I spoke of at the beginning of our interview. That when you take a pause, like you're saying, Sonia, take a breath, you access that inner wisdom, and sometimes things come out of your mouth you never expected you would say, and they are pretty good. Has anybody had that experience? I think probably all of us.
Yes.
Say, wow, I said that? And then it's just a wonder, and it's such a blessing.
It is. It truly is.
We allow, and another way of saying that is I get out of my own way.
Yeah.
So rather than fight it, be in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sheila says, I keep going, and it's gotten worse since the pandemic. And I like what Lynn just said. Instead of fighting it, just be in it. Just be in it. Don't fight it. Just allow it to be there.
Another thing is that there might be some brain synapse that is, that needs a little boost. So there might be some supplements you could take if biologically, physically, there's something that can help you. Check that out and see if you notice that you're declining, then, you probably want to see a physician. But in the meantime, if you're, every day by day, you can, as Stephen Covey says, sharpen the saw, get in front of the mirror and see how it is for 2 minutes or 1 minute. Just start at 1 minute and be there, and then speak to the image in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely.
It helps strengthen that core and and you're building neural circuitry in this work. Just so everybody knows, there are science research that relates to everything I'm saying here. That has to do with how we create new neural pathways and get out of those old default behaviors. There's scientific research about softened eyes and the creation of the oxytocin hormone. And there's science, and just so many articles about breath breath work and deep breath work, and what happens in the body when we move from the fight, flight, or freeze aspect of our nervous system into the relax and restore and recover part of our nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Absolutely.
So I didn't get into that, but it's all you. If you send me your name, and I'll share some resources that I have in that area, and it's all over the web. The power of breath and softened eye gaze.
Breath is so important. I realized when I got into doing breath work that I wasn't fully breathing, and like my breath would get cut off. And that was on a regular. And the other thing I noticed is that when I was in that fear state or I was experiencing some type of stress, I would hold my breath. And I didn't realize I was doing that until I started doing the breath work and paying attention. So I actually have a breath work teacher that I work with, that I go, and I haven't done it in a while, but I was going regularly to do breathing exercises with him to allow myself to learn how to connect with the breath better. And the breath, and that's the one thing I tell my daughter all the time, because she does suffer from anxiety when she's having a panic attack. I said, don't worry about anything else, just breathe. So you can get yourself centered, then you can access the other tools that you need. But the first thing, all you need to do is breathe, connect with your breath. So, I mean, it's huge for me. That's, I know maybe some of you've seen this, but yeah, I even have it tattooed on me because that's how important.
Wow.
That's how important that word is to me. It's so powerful. The breath is so powerful. So,
you know, Sonia, you're reminding me, I used to subscribe to Oprah magazine when it was, for years and years and years. I just loved reading her inspirational pieces, and especially in the back where it was, maybe some of you know, it was, the last page was what I know for sure. And then she now has translated those writings into books. But one thing, and I just made a note here, one thing that I loved from one of those what I know for sure readings was Oprah said, make your breath your anchor.
absolutely.
And if you pause at the bottom of that breath, you can really be present. It will change your life, as Sonia knows, and I know, and probably many of you know. But if you don't know and you forget, you can always come back. You want to try it again.
That's right.
Breath is constant. Thank God. Thank God.
That's right, Patty. Oprah is queen. I also like what Patty said, act or react. Like act or react. Was that a question or a statement, Patty? Are you referring to, I know we kind of went on there a little bit. Yes, being present. That's right. And I know, Sheila, yes, the isolation was challenging for a lot of people. And I think as we're coming out of it, we just, you know, this is a good time too for practicing, like we were talking about, the breathing and just connecting. And, you know, I think personally you should really check out Lynne's class, being the virtual class. It's a great way to connect with others. Even though it's done virtually, it's very powerful still, the learning of relational presence. It's very powerful.
You're reminding me of something, Sonia, and that is many of us may experience in the coming out from the COVID a hybrid environment where we're at work but online at home, and then we need to go to the office. And so there's that going on. And how do I stay engaged? How's my focus? How's my attention? Maybe during COVID, I got kind of, you know, wobbly or spaced out here. Another thing that's happened is that in our retreating in our own little cocoons or school, rectangles, we've often, when we see somebody, even if it's at the supermarket, our social skills have been challenged. We're not seeing people's faces behind the mask. Now they're slightly, some people are taking the mask off, but we've been in lockdown. So there's that aspect. And some of you, maybe more than others, are wearing a mask now and you feel different. So it affects the mind and the heart and the emotions and how we are able to connect. So bringing them all together is a process.
Yeah.
Oh,
It is.
and the process is every day, because we're communicating with people every day, most of the time.
Right. No, it is a process. And that time was a process for a lot of us, being home, adjusting. And it's, when you don't have other people to talk to, you might find your voice might have been closing up some because you weren't out there interacting and dealing with people. But now that things are starting to open up again, this is a great time, like I said, practicing those exercises, everything that Lynne mentioned today about finding your voice, work with those so that you can open up and find your voice. And as she also mentioned, there's going to be different times in our lives where we have to keep finding our voices because things change, situations change. So you might have to, refine your voice again for certain things, but these tools are very powerful, and I strongly suggest using the ones that she shared today. And if you're able to take one of her classes, please do, because they're phenomenal. They're really great.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. I welcome anybody who needs and wants one-to-one, because sometimes there's things that are pretty powerful in your life that have affected you and you don't want anybody to know. You need that safety, you need that trust to address your issues. And in the speaking circle experience, or if I do relational presence work on site with an organization or some group, I'm not coaching, giving everybody the individual coaching that you may need. So as we all know, there's degrees of comfort and ease. And we, every day, as I mentioned before, every day is a process. And the founder of the work, Speaking Circles work, created what he calls the fear to freedom continuum. So here's fear over here, and here's freedom over here, and there's everything in between. And we're constantly moving from fear towards freedom. Whoops, the other direction. We're moving towards freedom, and then something happens during the day, and boom, we're back into constriction and fear and anxiety and worry and depression. So we build the courage up again, and the relational presence work that I described to you helps us move more into ease and comfort and joy and trust and freedom. But it's every day is a new challenge.
Absolutely. I just quickly want to share this here. Tiny Trinkets and Tarot said, and because it's funny because we were just talking about this before we came on, Lynne, the pandemic forced people to get in touch with themselves, with their inner truths, and really face their inner turmoil. And it was an invitation to slow down and go within, challenging for many that continuously run and never stop to tune in. So it's...
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Isn't that the truth?
Yep. We were just talking about that before we went live. So it's interesting that you brought that up there.
Like big pause and then trying to figure out, what am I going to do with myself in the meantime?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So any last questions before we start wrapping up here? Hey, Kevin, Welcome. Yes, please check the replay because there's a lot of great information that Lynne shared with us today. And so happy that you're here. But any last questions before we wrap up? And while I'm waiting to see if there's any questions that come in, Lynne, do you have any last words that you want to share?
I'm so thankful for our relationship, Sonia, and how every time we meet, we are learning more about the value of relationship. And the more we peel back the stuff that gets in the way and be real, and we access that voice of authenticity. Finding one's own voice is a process of connection to self and other. So when we know ourselves well, or we're working on ourselves, we're better able to be with other.
Yes.
And we all know that. And it's a lifelong process. But if we set an intention that every day that I'm going to notice myself, I'm going to pay attention. And when I screw up, I'm going to come back, like the Buddhist teacher, come back, take a breath, come back. We're all human. We're perfect all the time, but we're also imperfect. We're imperfectly perfect. It's. So yeah. We, as a Sufi teacher of mine, used to say, we're polishing the stone.
I love that.
Yeah. So thank you, all of you, for being here. And I hope what Sonia and I have shared has served you, and I welcome your connecting with me after this to learn more or ask other questions and dive in.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, all of Lynne's information is in the description. There's resources there. Her contact information is there. So be sure to check that out. And don't forget thumbs up. I always forget to say that. Thumbs up. And any new subscribers, welcome. I should have said that in the beginning, but welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Happy for all the subscribers that I have here tonight and those watching the replay. Thank you for your support. Truly appreciate it. Lynne, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you, and I'm just so happy our paths crossed. So thank you.
There was a reason. I'm grateful, Sonia, that our paths crossed and that we have this platform. You have this platform where you're making a difference, and I'm using my own voice as you do.
Yes.
And we're helping others to do the same.
Love it. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Right, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And this Friday morning, I will be on at 8:30 Pacific time for Coffee Chat, Oracle Readings for the Collective. So I hope to see you then. All right, everyone. Good night.
Bye, everyone.